wow, like I can do this, you know, and it's not too late and I'm not too old.
Like you knew that was done, but not knowing what's next. It's the gap, and it's scary.
The gap hurts.
It does.
It hurts.
Because there's no map. And it's like, how long am I going to be here?
It feels like you're going to be there forever.
Yeah.
It is so painful.
Absolutely.
And so like, yeah, just like pick yourself up by your bootstrap. Just, you know, stay positive. Like you can't just say, you know, if there's something going on internally, you can't just tell someone, hey, be positive, if there's something inside of them that's not causing them to like make that correlation. Yeah.
Welcome back to the Mapuana Reed Show. Today we have my girl Felicia Romero with us, and this woman is actually the woman who taught me how to do podcasting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my
I remember I
gosh.
shared that dream with her that I wanted to be a podcaster, and she has a beautiful podcast, and she was like, I can help you, and I was like, yes. So
I love
thank
that.
you.
Well, you know what? I think you already had an amazing idea. You had already launched something. You just didn't put a lot of you almost kind of like shied away from the spotlight, right? Because you
Yeah.
launched it, you didn't quite talk about it, and I think
No, I didn't even launch it. I think I
oh,
wanted to like
you wanted
it was
to.
just a dream. I wanted to, but I
Yeah.
think I was like scared.
Yeah.
And I just kind of needed someone to guide me
Absolutely.
through the scaredness of it, and that
Yeah.
was you.
Yeah. And the
Yeah.
thing is, like, we all have so many stories to share. We were just talking about this earlier. We are both coming off of an amazing weekend of the
Yes,
Powerhouse Women. And I love, one of the things that I love doing is chatting with women around me because, girl, I go deep. Like, we were at
Yes.
dinner last night and we weren't talking about, like, oh, like, what was your favorite outfit? Like, no, like, what was your biggest takeaway? What did you feel during this? And, you know, someone asked me, like, Felicia, what was your biggest takeaway? And I was like, gosh, sharing stories. Every woman in that room, speaker and attendees, all have a story to share. And one of the common things, denominator that I saw with the speakers that really impacted me the most were those women who shared their story from a really empowered place, right? And that is the amazing thing about podcasting is we get to share our story in a longer form platform because there's so much you can do with a 7-second Instagram reel and caption.
Right. Yeah.
And podcasting really takes you in. It gets you to get to know the person that you're listening to in their story or the story of their guest. And you don't feel so alone, right? And maybe there's something today that Mapuana and I talk about that just impacts you in such a deep way where you were like, "Ah, I needed to hear that today," and something shifts inside of you.
I feel like podcasting is like you could just drop in. It's almost like a three-way phone call. Like
Yeah.
if someone can just listen in and they're on the conversation with us on the phone, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Isn't that powerful?
It is.
Like
It
there's
really
someone
is.
listening to you right now that's a huge
Yeah.
fan of you that loves what you're doing and they're supporting you and they're wanting to listen to your story and they're wanting to like, you know, like receive the insights that you're giving them.
Yeah.
So that's powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think my whole thing is I just want to inspire people to know that no matter where you are, you can always start over.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You can start again.
You can start
I
again
don't
at
care
any
how old you
time.
are. Like I'm 50. You could be
Oh,
50, you could start again. Wherever you are in life,
oh my
you could
gosh.
always start again.
Can I share something with you?
Yeah.
Okay, this is going to be vulnerable share.
Those are my favorites.
So we were at dinner last night, and this is not something that I talk about like openly on my Instagram. It's something that I tend to keep private. And now again, I'm going to talk about it on a podcast, but I'll just highlight some of the things that I'm thinking. But last night I was at a dinner, and you know, it goes along to what you just said. It's never too late. And, you know, some of the ladies were kind of like, you know, asking me questions and getting to know me because I just met some of these women just for the first time yesterday. And they're like, wow, you've done so much in business. And I had shared that, you know, I would love to start a fertility journey. I'm 42. And just recently, I've really had this strong inclination, like almost like I'm literally having dreams of a baby girl that I know I need to bring into this world. But I've spent years building a business, right? And one of the women that were there, she's like, wow, you know, I always feel like going to these events, I feel so behind because everyone's built their business. And I actually spent most of my, you know, my 20s and early 30s raising babies. And now I'm ready to do my business. So she feels behind, but then I feel behind. So like we're never alone, right? And we all have our own hangups and insecurities and things that we feel that make us feel like we're not enough or we're behind in life. And I'm here to tell you, like, you can start at any time. Like me right now at 42, really wanting to start this journey of what what could that look like for me and my fiance in terms of like bringing a child into this world, and we're having open discussions about it and seeking medical advice, and it's just like, wow, like I can do this, and it's not too
Exactly.
late, and I'm not
Exactly.
too old.
And then when you see another woman do it, like yesterday we had amazing speakers up on
Yeah.
stage, but to see them do it, it's almost like, you know what, if she can, then so can I.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You know who gave me the inspiration? Kourtney Kardashian. Okay.
Oh,
She's
really?
44.
Are you
She's
serious?
44 and she just had her last son. Yeah.
Jeez, I didn't even know she's 44.
Yeah, she's
I swear she looks
44.
20.
Yeah, and I hear and now, and you know how like whenever you're trying to do something or
Yeah.
whenever something becomes omnipresent in your world,
Yeah.
you start seeing it everywhere,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. It's like the
So
red
like,
car. Like if you have
yeah,
the red car, you see it
the
everywhere.
red
Yeah.
car. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so like for me, I'm seeing now kind of in my aura, in my omnipresence, like women in their 40s having babies.
Yeah.
And it makes me feel really hopeful,
Exactly.
hopeful that it could
Yeah.
happen for me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing for me is I hope a woman who's in her 50s doesn't feel old. I
Yeah.
hope she feels I'm just at the halfway point and I have
Yeah.
another half of my life to go and I can
Yes.
do this too, no matter what she wants to do.
Yeah.
Whether she wants to have a new career or
Yeah.
whatever it is, if she wants to pivot on doing anything,
Yeah.
she can always start again.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Yeah. I mean, I even heard Oprah say, I'm
Yes.
not done yet.
Yeah.
She was just on the Jamie Kern Lima podcast. I was
Yes.
listening on the way over here
Yes.
because we
Yeah.
just listened to Jamie Kern,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I gotta listen to this Oprah podcast she had, and literally Oprah, ladies, like listener right now, Oprah saying, I'm not done yet.
I'm
Like,
not done
hello,
yet. Yeah.
Oprah. She's done so
Right.
much. Like she
Yeah.
feels that too. So
Yeah.
hello, we're never too old. It's never too late.
Exactly. You're
Yeah.
too old when you die.
Yes.
And we're not there. We're
Yes.
not even close to that.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So take me on your journey. There's this thing that I love, and it's called The Job, the journey on becoming.
Mhm.
So take me on your journey on becoming Felicia and the gym and
Ooh.
all the things in between.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll kind of wrap it up in a nutshell and sort of the different, because I feel like I've lived so many different lives,
Mm-hmm.
Mapuana. Like I don't know if you feel like that.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
you think back at certain points in your life, like I am a completely different person than I
100%.
was then, right?
Yeah.
Like there have been so many layers of Felicia that has just shed over the course of the last 20 years. So I'll take you back. I'll take you back to college. I went to Arizona State and I
Okay.
was very athletic. I actually was there on a softball scholarship, and I just loved competing and I loved sports. And it was one of those things where I was the first to graduate in my family with a degree. And so college was really important to my mom and my family. And I remember getting this opportunity to go to Arizona State. And, when you're in college, and gosh, I definitely would never want to be like 20, 21 again, because
Mm-hmm.
there is so much confusion at that
Yeah.
age of like,
You
what
don't
am I
know
going to
who
do? And
you are.
you don't
You're
even know who
finding
you are. You're
yourself. Yeah.
finding yourself, and like everyone's asking you, like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? And like, honestly, like it's so much pressure to
Yeah.
figure it out, right?
Yeah.
Quickly. And I remember during that time, I was studying to be a lawyer. I have my bachelor's in political science. I took my LSAT for law school, and it was really more of my mom's dream, not mine. And
Mm.
I didn't realize that until I actually came down to like the crossroads of filling out my application for law school. And I had this, I didn't know it at the time. I know it now, but I'm a generator. And I'm a 3-5, and
Human
yeah,
design.
human design.
Yeah.
Like I am more of a sacral.
Okay.
So my authority is sacral. So like I feel it in my body. And I remember during that time, again, back in my 20s, I didn't understand what that was.
Hmm.
I just knew like this isn't for me.
And no one was talking about it back in the
No
day.
one.
Like
I
I
knew.
just learned about human design very recently.
Yeah, no
Yeah,
one was
like this
talking
year.
about it. Like
Yeah.
I can honestly, and I even like suggest the listener, like think back to times in your life where you knew you were meant to do something, or you
Hmm.
had this knowing, or you had this gut feeling, or you had
Hmm.
this intuition, or you're like, gosh, why didn't that feel for me? Like, and explore Enneagram or human
Hmm.
design, because it tells you a lot, especially if you use it as a tool.
Hmm.
But at that time, I knew law school wasn't for me, and I was kind of at a crossroads of like totally disappointing my mom. And at the time, I had actually started training people, personal training, fitness, out of my garage. I had moved out at 19. My partner who I'd lived with, we opened up, a gym in our garage, and I literally did that to make money while I was going to school.
Hmm.
And I do believe that sometimes you accidentally fall upon that passion, especially when you're doing things that you really enjoy.
Hmm.
And for me, that was fitness.
Hmm.
Like I'm a natural coach, I'm a natural teacher, mentor, it's in my chart. But I didn't realize it. It's just something that came naturally to me, and something that I just, again, everything happens for a reason. I
Mm-hmm.
was meant to meet that person. I was meant to start training people, and it really led to the next 15 years of figure competing. So
Mm-hmm.
what I did was sort of like a beauty pageant with muscle. So I was
Okay.
an IFBB figure pro, which led to magazine covers like the Oxygen magazine, Flex magazine,
Wow.
Muscle and Fitness Hers. It led to my first 3 gyms, so
Was that so? Your first three gyms was here in Arizona?
yes,
Okay.
yeah. And so I sold my last gym in end of 2017, early 2018. But over the course of that 15 years, sort of my journey with like my body and fitness and health, it was always something that was the foundation of everything that I did. A lot of healing along the way, and we can totally get into that.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, a lot of the decisions that I made, and I didn't realize this until later, learning about myself, were made not out of logic, but out of emotion and out
Mm-hmm.
of like this feels really good right now,
Mm-hmm. Like your gut
and
feeling.
like a gut feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize that I was using my intuition before. I just thought it was like, oh, this is what I need to be
Mm-hmm.
doing. But now, like hindsight, foreshadowing, looking back, oh wow, like I really was making decisions from my heart and
Mm-hmm.
not from logic, because I often say like my naivete allowed me to open up my first 3 gyms. Like a 25-year-old girl asking for $250,000 investment, for my first gym. I didn't have the liquid funds. How did I have the audacity? Like, you know what I mean? I
Yeah.
think back
Yeah.
now, like, who was I? Like, I did not know, but I was just naive. I
Yeah.
was so attached to the vision that I
Yeah.
didn't care about the how, right? And I
Yeah.
was also very risk averse. This
But
is,
sometimes that's the greatest thing,
oh, it's
right?
the
Because
greatest
you think
thing.
back now, like like with
Yeah.
everything you know now, you
Yes.
think like, oh my gosh, I would be so scared to have to like try to figure that out. And two
Jamie
hundred
said
fifty
that
thousand
yesterday. Do you
dollars, yeah,
remember? Jamie
yes,
Kern-Lima. She's like,
yes,
well, if I would have known, I don't think I would have done it, right?
exactly,
And sometimes
yeah,
that naive mentality could be something that helps you do the thing and try, right?
yeah.
So yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so you did. So you had the gym for 15 years. You
Yes.
did that, and you
Yeah.
did, yeah. Okay, all of those fitness journey and all that.
Uh-huh.
So then you closed the gym. What made you close the gym?
Yeah. So just to kind of take you back a little bit. So I was a competitor. So for the listener that may not know, I was an IFBB figure pro. So I want you to imagine like back in the day, like Arnold Schwarzenegger,
Okay.
Olympia stage. I basically was being judged. It was sort of like a beauty pageant with muscle. And at one point in this time, I placed fourth in the world at what I did.
Wow,
Yeah,
girl, good for
yeah. Thank
you.
you,
Oh
thank
my
you.
gosh, it's
I
amazing.
love that. Oh gosh, let me just also say, I love that you said that. The Olympics is bringing up a lot for me. I never went to the Olympics, but just like competing at a level that is like
Mhm.
beyond anything else.
Mhm.
And one of like my wish for these women and these athletes that are like competing is, gosh, just really savor the moment, enjoy the
Yeah.
journey. I think Simone Biles wrote on Twitter the other day, like, I can people just stop asking me what's next, right? Because like
Mhm.
I just want a gold. Like, what's next? That was
Yeah.
my mindset for 15 years. I did this thing. Oh my gosh, so awesome. But look, what's
What's
next?
next? What's next?
And I
Yeah.
was never like satisfied or fulfilled, right? And
Yeah.
so the reason I'm mentioning this is because all of those years of competing and also running gyms, it brought me also to like my biggest health journey and
Mhm.
health scare that I ever had. And it was this combination of like, disordered eating and
Mm.
body dysmorphia,
Mhm.
right? Because you think, oh wow, Felicia, you were fourth in the world. What you
Mhm.
did, like everyone was looking at me, but also the caveat is I'm being judged physically by
Mhm.
how I look.
Mhm.
I have to look a certain way, be a certain body fat.
Mhm.
There was a lot of like diet culture
Mhm.
mentality of like fat phobia and
Mhm.
body fat phobia that really, really tore me apart. And it sort of created this bad relationship, not only with food,
Mhm.
but with myself, that I
Mm.
had to deconstruct up until I sold my gyms. And so, a lot of that was like, for me, deconstructing what it meant to feel worthy and be worthy beyond my body, because I had been subjected for so long with my body that
Mhm.
I thought that that was the only thing that made me worthy. It's the only thing that made me feel
Mm.
beautiful. It was the only thing that people would give me accolades for. It was the only thing that I could use to give me that dopamine hit to feel
Mhm.
enough.
Mhm.
And when you're not in the best shape, and when I actually gained about 40 pounds over the
Mhm.
course of 6 weeks, because I was a binge eater,
Mhm.
your value and how you feel about yourself
Mhm.
goes down the drain. Like, I
Mhm.
was so depressed. I had so much anxiety. I was so miserable. And I remember even these feelings, Mapuana, of like walking through the grocery store. And I remember feeling like, I remember thinking, like, I was around Thanksgiving, and I remember having this exact thought. I just want to be able to go to the grocery store and have a normal relationship with food
Mm.
and not feel like I'm just going to eat everything. I'm going to
Mhm.
binge. And so, for those that may not know what binge eating disorder is, it literally is a disorder where it's kind of fascinating, but like you can't stop eating. Like when
Mhm.
you have a binge episode, you
Mhm.
would be shocked at the amount of food that one can eat. And it was like you're trying to fill this void. And little did I know it had nothing to do with food and everything to do with how I felt about myself
Yeah.
and control.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then did you feel not good about yourself? Like that's like you're just training and training and training for something, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's going to be like this competition coming up. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
train for that. But then when that's over,
Oh, yeah.
you're just like into what's next, what's
Oh,
next.
yeah.
But if there wasn't anything next, is that when you would just go off and do the binge
Oh,
eating?
yeah.
Like,
Oh, yeah. If there was nothing scheduled or planned, I would gain so much weight in the off season that it was uncomfortable.
yeah.
And I literally at one point I had to just do another competition in order to get in shape and stay in shape
Wow.
because it was so severe. And it
Mm-hmm.
didn't happen until probably my fourth or fifth year of competing. In the beginning, I didn't I didn't grow up with that. Like my mom, I grew up in a Mexican household,
Mm-hmm.
right? So my mom actually showered us. The way she shows love is with food, right?
Mm.
Even to this day. Like
Polynesian people too.
yesterday she's
Yeah.
bringing food to my house. Like she
Yeah.
made us cookies and she made us all these dishes.
Yeah.
Like, and that makes her feel so good, right? And if
Yeah.
we don't eat her food, she's like, "What? This is how I show you love," you know?
Yeah.
So, and my mom loved her body. She loved her curves. She never talked about calories or carbs or dieting. I never heard her once say, like, I hate my body. So I didn't grow up with that at
Mm-hmm.
all, like that
Mm-hmm.
diet mentality. It wasn't until I got into college and competing is when I developed that. So, it was something that I was unfamiliar with, and that I
Mm-hmm.
didn't realize that, wow, me using my body to prove my self-worth was something that was going to actually affect me for years to come. And I didn't know that that would be
Mm-hmm.
the case. They
Wow.
don't tell you that when you start competing. They don't tell you that. Same thing with athletes,
Mm-hmm.
like think about gymnasts having to be a certain weight. Think
Mm-hmm.
about the diets that they have to do. And, just as of recent, I feel like mental health is starting to become more prevalent, and taking care of your mental
Oh
health
yeah.
and even just talking about mental health is not so stigmatized now as it
Yeah.
was back in the day.
Yes.
And
It was so shameful back in the day. It was like,
yeah,
what's wrong with you? Or it was looked
yeah,
down upon, you know?
absolutely. And so, like, yeah, just like pick yourself up by your bootstrap. Just,
Yeah.
stay positive. Like, you can't just say, if there's something going on internally,
Yeah.
you can't just tell someone, hey, be positive,
Yeah.
if there's something inside of them that's not causing them to like make that correlation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that was 15 years of your
Yeah.
life.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what happened after you sold your gym?
Yeah.
Where like take me on that journey.
Yeah. Okay, so I sold my gym.
What year?
This was end of 2017, early
Okay.
2018.
Okay.
And now the gym was doing amazing. And so one of the things that actually I think kept me so I will say I started that last gym mainly from ego
Okay.
and pride. And it's not always the best thing to do when you are not doing it for the right reasons,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I had been bought out of the previous gym that I owned. It was a bad partnership. If you've ever had a bad partnership, and those listeners that know, sometimes they go south. You have
Mm-hmm.
to really be careful and have contracts in place where you dot your I's and cross your T's. But unfortunately, I had a partnership that went bad,
Mm-hmm.
and I was bought out of a gym that I started. And because I wasn't strong enough, and again, I wasn't like an advocate for myself,
Mm-hmm.
and I was very much more on like, I'm not the dominant, like aggressive one. I'm usually kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, whatever you think.
Mm-hmm.
And I sort of like step back. Part of me wishes I would have fought more, but again, everything happens for a reason. And so I was bought out, and I had to sign a year non-compete. And a non-compete clause, for those that don't know, is like, I had to basically not open up a gym within
Mm-hmm.
the 5 to 7 mile or 10 mile radius within a year, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for the fear of like taking clients and all of those things. Again, really hard to enforce. Arizona's a right to work state, but again, I agreed. So I knew, okay, I'm going to open up another gym and it's going to be better than
Mm-hmm.
ever. And I'm going to prove everyone wrong. And at this time, again, motivated for the wrong reasons of
Mm-hmm.
just like proving to the world that I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't a failure.
Mm-hmm.
And because at that time, again, this is again layers that have shed, but I no longer care what people think. But at the time,
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely did. I cared what my friends thought. I cared what the community thought. I cared what my family thought.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like,
Did you
yeah.
feel that they thought that you're a failure because you got bought out?
Yeah, or that's, again, people always assume or have stories, but,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes too, people don't know the actual truth.
Yes,
And
for
sometimes
sure.
I
Yeah.
didn't have the energy to go on this
So instead,
journey
it's
of,
like I would just show them.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I
I'm
would
going to
show
show them.
them that
Yes.
I'm better than that. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And
Yeah.
so I was motivated for all the wrong reasons. And so I secured a bunch of investor money. I opened up this amazing gym. It was profitable in the first 8 months. Again, when you open up a brick and mortar, just so you know, like at that time you only know what you know, so it was a membership based studio similar to an Orange Theory, and I made the mistake of not having a pre-sale. I didn't know, I didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
Again, you learn from mistakes. I know now, but we weren't profitable until about 8 months in, luckily, because we started paying rent at that 6 month mark.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a work in progress, but had that gym for about 5 years, probably a year too long. And again, when you are motivated for the wrong reasons and you're doing things not from the heart but
Mm-hmm.
from the head or in other like egocentric ways or pride, and I can say this now because I've learned so much from those decisions, um it just didn't feel right. It
Mm-hmm.
didn't feel like my lifelong legacy and dream, right?
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, I remember feeling like I don't have anything else to prove to anybody. And I no longer feel like this is my thing and it's time to move on.
And how old were you at the time?
I was 34.
Okay.
Yeah, 34. I'm 42 now and almost 35. And I just knew it was time to move on. So I had secured a buyer. She was actually the person, she worked as a sales associate for me, and
Mm-hmm.
she had always been interested in like owning a studio and a gym. And so the sell went great and it was seamless. But again, back to I remember feeling so depressed. I remember, this is again another vulnerable share, but I remember as someone who is like a high functioning anxiety person and someone who is usually like on the go.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I sold the gym, I literally didn't do anything for 6 months. I would sit on the couch and I would watch Netflix. And that's really hard to say as someone who prides herself
Mm-hmm.
in being busy. Like I
Mm-hmm.
used to wear like hustle like a badge of honor. And I remember lying to my partner, Keith, who we're now pretty much married. We're engaged, but spiritually married. And I remember telling him, like, he's like, "Oh, what'd you do today?" I'm like, "Oh, I did all of these things. And I did that." And I was literally like depressed watching Netflix on the couch
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't know what my next steps were. And I was at this really,
But you knew you had to let go of the gym. Like
I
you knew
knew,
that was done, but
I knew
not
that was
knowing what's
done,
next.
not
It's the
knowing what's
gap,
next.
and it's
Oh my gosh,
scary.
the gap hurts.
It does.
It
Because
hurts.
there's no map. And it's like, how long am I going to be here?
It feels like you're going to be there forever.
Yeah.
It is so painful.
Yeah.
It is so
But you know
scary.
you don't want to go back.
I know I don't want to go back. I
But you
knew
don't
that
know where
wasn't for
forward
me.
is.
I couldn't even see it. Like
Yeah.
I couldn't even see a lighthouse. Like I couldn't even see like a little light. Like there was nothing.
Yeah.
And it was so scary. I was scared because I always knew what was next. I always knew my
Mm-hmm.
next
Mm-hmm.
my next step. I
Mm-hmm.
always knew it.
When the next competition was coming up,
Mm-hmm.
everything is like, what's next? What's next?
Yeah,
What's next?
college, master's degree,
Yeah.
gym, like it was always so like
Planned
step by
out.
step, plan
Yeah.
by plan. And I remember just feeling so down, so depressed, and also for a little bit, I felt shame, like, oh my gosh, I'm shame. I feel guilty for sitting on the couch watching Netflix. Like,
Mhm.
what should I
Especially
should,
if being a gym owner, you're busy, like,
yeah.
working
Mm-hmm.
out, doing all the things. Yeah.
Running a team and running
Yeah.
payroll, and there's always something to do. And
Yeah.
I was always so used to like putting out a fire or doing this or doing
Mm-hmm.
that. And so
What was the
it's
shame?
painful.
But why? Why did you feel shame?
Uh, I felt shame. Well, first off, I did not want to let people know what was actually going on with me.
Mm.
I was so shameful to like for people to know the truth about
Mm-hmm.
me, the truth of like what I was really feeling. Like I
Mm-hmm.
always had to appear like I was productive and that I was doing things and that I was doing well with like money. There was always this portrayal of what I wanted people to think of me when deep down inside. And so there was this really weird, like, this in between of who I was to everyone else and who I really was.
Covers of magazine,
Yeah,
all of that stuff.
absolutely. And the
Yeah.
shame was knowing that I was doing all of these things or I had accomplished all these things and like, oh, what is Felicia doing now? And again, I doubt this is again your ego. I really doubt anyone really thought like, what is Felicia doing? Like no one
Yeah,
is,
yeah,
everyone has their own stuff.
of course.
Everyone has their
Yeah,
own life, their own problems, their
yeah,
own stresses, their own dreams that they're working on. I highly doubt, and this is why I am so passionate about like just show up on social media. Like no one cares as much as you care, right?
yeah,
Everyone is living their life, right? And
yeah,
so like we tend to assume that all of these people are judging us. And again, yeah, maybe some from afar are,
yeah,
and those aren't our people, but they're not. You know what I mean? You
yeah,
have to really
yeah,
like I had to remind myself that. But it was again all ego, all head. Yeah.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah.
How long did that gap last for you?
Ooh, that
We're gonna call it
gap.
the Netflix gap.
The Netflix gap.
Sometimes it feels good.
Yes.
It's like get me back there for a little bit.
I want to say I feel like it was around 6 months.
Okay.
And then that's when I remember I started getting deeper into personal development.
Okay.
And I had a mentor at that time, unknowingly. I didn't know he was a mentor, but he was because he would call me on my shit. Sorry if I can cuss, but
Yeah,
he
yeah.
would like, like he and he's a mutual friend of Stephanie and I, who Stephanie's in the room, but he I he would like sit with me. He's like, oh, like, let's set some goals. Like, what are you doing? And he would like help me set goals, And I remember like, and everyone needs someone in their life
Oh yeah.
that pushes them just a little bit
Yeah.
and that questions them on things. Again, not in like
And in a loving
in a
place.
loving way. Yeah,
Yeah,
not
in a
in a
loving
shameful way or a guiltful way,
Yeah.
but like, hey, like, and so I started just like chatting with him and having these conversations. And then I started getting really curious and I started finding personal development. I started reading books. Went to my first conference, surrounding myself with people that were doing things. And during my gym days, like when I didn't have any of that. Everything was based, and honestly, I opened up my first gym. There was really no social media. So I didn't have the comparison game. I didn't know what other people were doing. I was so living in my purpose of what I was building that I didn't see what everyone else was doing until 2012 and social media, Instagram drops, and so you start seeing what everyone else is doing. But the moment I started surrounding myself with like-minded people, I started really imagining what my life could look like, what my money story could look like, what I could build and what I could do. And again, I'm a creative person and I'm multi-passionate. And so like all of those feelings, that stagnant energy started turning into like really inspirational energy and creative energy. And that's when I just really started thinking about all the possibilities for myself. And that's when I really started diving into fitness again, started my fitness business and was able to grow it to multiple six figures in the first year of having it.
And so when you dove back into fitness, was it with another gym or was
No,
it
it was my own.
Okay.
Yeah, it was like my own company, my own Felicia Romero Fit, like online
Okay.
essentially. And I started realizing like, wow, I don't have to trade time for money. I don't have to have this huge overhead of a gym and brick and mortar. I could help people online. And that was around the time where people, it was still relatively new. There were not a lot of coaches online. And I started diving into this online realm and space. Since then, obviously, my brand has evolved so much. But I started getting really creative in how I make money and how I impact people around the world. And it just started growing from there. Yeah.
It's so beautiful that when you can connect your self-development into like your true passion and kind of
Yeah.
bring that together.
Yes. Oh my gosh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then things start to make sense.
Totally. And
You
then you
don't
start
feel
doing it for the
alone.
right reasons.
Oh,
And then there's no ego in there,
yeah. Yeah, you start doing it for the right reasons. I love that because
Yeah.
you didn't realize it before until you're aware of it and you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And that's why the first step to any sort of change is awareness.
Exactly.
Just
Yes.
knowing
Yeah.
what is holding you back
Yeah.
and just knowing like, oh, this is why I did this and this is why this happened. And that is the first step to change.
Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
sitting with that feeling and does this feel right for me right now? In
Yeah.
this season in my life, does this feel right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what I got really good at since then is being consistent and asking myself those questions,
Yeah.
right? Not like, how much money is this going to make me? But no, how am I going to feel as I'm
Mm.
doing this?
Yeah.
What is this new offer? Or what is this retreat that I'm hosting? Or what is this? Even when I go into my podcast episode sessions, I set an intention. Like, what
Mm.
do I want the listener who listens to this conversation I'm about to have with this amazing guest? What do I want them to feel when they are listening?
Yeah.
So um, it's very intentional. It's very a lot of awareness and a lot of
Mm-hmm.
intentionality in what I do. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you also have the podcast.
Yes.
Tell me about the other things that you have going on.
Yeah. So I have the Hi Felicia, and that has been rebranded. It used to be
That's
called
great.
the Hi Felicia instead of Bye Felicia.
Yeah.
I forgot how that dropped in. Oh, you know how that dropped in. So when you allow yourself to rest during busy seasons,
Yeah.
I remember going on a retreat. And it was with a group that I had signed up with, a mastermind group for the year. And I remember going to Colorado, and we had planned this like retreat in Colorado with all of the girls, and it dropped in
Mm.
during the retreat.
Yeah.
And it was just like it literally, it's almost like, like if you've ever received a download, ladies, you know what I mean? Like it just like falls into your lap and into your brain. You're like, that's it.
That's
That's
it.
it. And you
Yes.
just
Yes.
feel it,
Yeah. Yeah.
So I remember I've been wanting to rebrand. So went from the Diet Dropout to the Hi Felicia podcast. I have multiple streams of income, but I still have a stronghold in fitness. So I
Okay.
have a corporate wellness business. So I love helping companies, especially in that 25 to 30 employee range,
Mm-hmm.
develop a corporate wellness program for their employees.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all virtual. And I have a handful of companies that I work with that I've been working with now for, oh gosh, almost 8, 10 years
Wow.
that I love. Corporate wellness is something that I think is always kind of the foundation of my
Yeah.
business because it still keeps me, and I have trainers that actually I have that I
Okay.
subcontract
Mm-hmm.
that run it that used to work for me at the studio that I used to own.
Mm-hmm.
And then I do a lot of consulting with fitness brands and companies. So basically, what's amazing about where I'm at now, Mapuana, is I am paid for my experience and not
Mm-hmm.
my time.
Yes.
And that is so valuable to me
Yeah.
because, and a lot of what you see front facing on my social media,
Mm-hmm.
like mentorship and
Mm-hmm.
helping wellness and fitness women launch their online business, and I host masterminds and
Mm-hmm.
retreats and
Yes.
workshops, and I do live podcast events, and I love it. That's everything you see front facing,
Yeah.
but everything underneath the hood of the car, the
Mm-hmm.
flashy car that you see on
Mm-hmm.
social, is literally years and years of experience that I've built to be able to connect and work with companies that seek me out to consult with me and help them with their business and brand.
Mm.
And that is really nice to be in that place
Yeah.
because, it's kind of reminds me of that quote, you know, it costs $1 to cut the wire,
Mm-hmm.
but it costs $10,000 to know which wire to cut.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's me. I'm the
Yeah.
$10,000 knowing which wire to cut.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
where I'm being valued for my experience and the time that I've spent building and going through it. Like I've
Mm-hmm.
experienced it. I've actually embodied in everything that I do because I've actually experienced every type of
Mm-hmm.
failure
Mm-hmm.
in business and in
Mm-hmm.
relationships. And I've gotten through it and I figured it out
Mm-hmm.
and I've learned from it so that now I can help others. And that's
Mm-hmm.
a really fun place to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your podcast, Hi Felicia, and
Mm-hmm.
it was called, so was that also a podcast? It was the
So it
Diet
was,
Dropout?
yeah. So I just
Okay.
basically changed the name. So
Okay.
I kept
Okay.
the pod. I didn't like relaunch it or do anything. So I just kind of changed it
Okay.
along the way.
And
Yeah.
it was so you could talk about other topics other
Yeah.
than, okay.
Like think about it. Like how many times have you just wanted to expand the
Yes,
conversation?
you just want to expand. But
You
then
want
you're
to
like,
talk about
oh,
other
I need to talk
things.
about diet things. I need to
Yeah.
talk
Like,
about
oh my
health
gosh,
and
ladies, I'm going to give you the permission slip right now that you don't have to like, people often think if I niche, then I
yeah.
can only talk about these
Yes.
things. And to agree, sometimes yes. Like, but just think about it for a little bit. Think about we're all like multifaceted. And the person that's popping in my brain right now is Lori Harder. So Lori Harder was fitness background, helping
Yes.
people. She had a fitness business. She was in network marketing and she built this fitness business. But I remember her saying, like, when she really wanted to start expanding conversations,
Mhm.
especially with her girlfriends. And if you see, like, her brand is
Mhm.
really about building the community and the environment that you're in, right? And
Mhm.
having awesome girlfriends
Mhm.
and a tribe, essentially, right? She used to have, like, find your, what is it? She has a book called, A Tribe Called Bliss.
Mm.
And she used to have like these conferences and stuff. But like she's one that comes to mind because she has evolved her brand so
Mhm.
much, right? To expand the conversation.
Mhm.
So, but the foundation of her brand is still very much wellness,
Mhm.
but it's a different kind of wellness, right?
Yeah.
Even with Glossy.
Yeah.
So I want you to like think about it right now, especially if women are listening and they're struggling with this. Like, what do I talk about? And
Mhm.
yeah, like find your like,
Like I want to expand,
yeah,
but
yeah,
like everybody knows me for this one thing, or everybody
yes,
knows me for just fitness, but I want
yes,
more than that.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
so I
It's like
want you to,
photography. Everybody knew me as a photographer, but I'm like,
right.
I want more than
Oh my
photography.
gosh, you were like busting at the seams, right? Like you just wanted
Yes.
to like, and you
Yeah.
did it, and you did it.
Yeah.
And so I want to just give women the permission. There is no right time to do it. Like you just start doing it.
You
You just
just
start
go.
having the conversations.
Yeah.
And this is why storytelling is so important.
You tap into what feels right for you and
Yeah.
you just go.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. So that was it for me. I was like busting at the seams. I'm like, I just want to talk about other things. Like, I want to
Yeah.
talk about human design and I want to talk about
Yes.
relationships and I
Yes.
want to talk about empowerment
Yeah.
and I want to talk about like, I loved history. So sometimes I'll have this, I have this reoccurring series called Tuesdays with Key. It's my girlfriend Kiana, who's also a photographer.
Yeah.
And we do it on Tuesdays. And we literally talked about so many different topics and subjects. And oftentimes I love to bring up like history and like the Salem witch trials. And we'll talk about
Right?
it and like psychedelics. And like it's just it's fun. It's
Yeah.
fun to have that and
Yeah.
to know that like, oh, it's safe to talk about other things. And again, that's the reason why I love podcasting
Yes.
because it allows you to do that as
Yeah.
well. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's kind of like I'm growing, come along with me.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Did you feel for a point though that like when you wanted to switch out from that
Hmm.
to Hi Felicia, did you feel that you were also in the gap again for a
Yes.
bit?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I
With your
probably,
identity and then the people
ooh,
pleasing, like, oh, they're gonna look at me this way and feeling scared or
yes. Let me tell you, I have been in the gap at least over, I'm 42 now. And I would really say I started diving into entrepreneurship in early 20s. I've felt the gap 3 times
okay, so
over the
but
course of
oh,
of
does
those
the
years.
gap get shorter? Like every time you go into the gap, does the time there you feel like get shorter for
It
a bit?
does.
Like I'm in the gap and I know
Yeah.
I will get through this.
It does. It absolutely does. And again, when I was feeling the gap last, it was when I was in a mastermind.
Mm-hmm.
So what was amazing about that is I had women supporting me
Mm-hmm.
and I had like literally examples of
Mm-hmm.
women who just were able to step into it and I did it so much quicker and I was less indecisive and
Mm-hmm.
I was not as like in that depressive, I don't want to use the word depressing, but like in that like stagnant unsure
And
state.
sure.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, it definitely, it
Yeah.
doesn't last as long for sure. And then it's familiar. You're like, oh,
Oh,
I
I
know this
remember
feeling.
this.
I
Yeah.
remember
Yeah,
this.
I know what
Okay.
this is and I know
And
how to get out of it.
yeah, and
Yeah.
now I have tools. I
Exactly.
have tools like
Yeah.
movement, somatic movement. I have breath work. I have a community of women that I didn't have back
Yeah.
then that is just so much different now. And
Yeah.
so that's been really, really amazing.
And I'm sure it's amazing to also see Lori Harder to be like, you know what, she did it, she pivoted, and so
Yeah.
can I.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. This is why I also feel it's also important to, yes, like, girl, share your highlight reels, share the amazing things that you're doing, but also if you have been through it, share your failures.
Yeah.
Because when Lori Harder shared her failure of feeling like she let down 35 women with that investment,
Mm-hmm.
the drink light pink, and that I remember her because she actually we hosted a live podcast. She was my guest, and I remember her saying so eloquently like. I would wake up with anxiety every night. Like I've let
Mm.
35 women down, $2 million invest like with investment money. And she just had this reoccurring feeling like she had to turn the ship. The
Mm-hmm.
Titanic was going to hit the iceberg,
Mm-hmm.
but the women on the ship, they're just along for the ride. They'll go along with you if
Mm-hmm.
you take them with
And
you.
you're the captain.
You're the captain.
Yeah.
She had to turn the ship. And like I could feel her authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
I could even feel it, and I feel like I'm very much empath. Like we joke about this with one of my girlfriends, Annette. Like I know when you're going through something. I can feel it through Instagram. Like I can feel that you're,
Yes.
and I'll
Yeah.
send her a message like, "Hey, everything okay?" She's like, "Oh my gosh, girl!" Like like I can
Yeah.
feel it. And I remember like seeing Lori Harder's post, and I'm like, "Oh, she's going through it. She's going through something,
Yeah.
and she's finding her way."
Yeah.
And when she shared those feelings of how she navigated those really hard decisions, that is like, I love that
Hmm.
because
It
it
makes it
teaches you.
real.
It makes it
And
real.
it makes you feel not
Oh,
alone. Like when you're in the
yeah.
gap, it makes you feel like, you know what, I'm not
Yeah.
alone. Like, yeah. And it doesn't
Hmm.
make you feel like you're a failure.
No. And
Yeah,
that everything is figure outable, right?
totally.
Maria Forleo has that book. Everything is figure outable.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
she figured it out, and it's like you don't feel like you have no options when you
Yeah.
hear like, wow, she just turned the ship and she changed the complete business model and
Hmm.
plan. That that's a move. That's power, right? That's
Yeah.
stepping into your power, and
It's like
that
that story
is so
that
good.
Jamie Kern-Lima shared with us yesterday about
Yes.
how many no's. Everyone was like telling her no, 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 and she just
That hurt
believes
me.
it.
I could feel
Girl,
it.
I don't know if
I
I
was
would have.
crying.
I was crying, and I don't even know if I would have it in me to go that many times hearing
That's
that many no's.
we were talking about that with Stephanie here.
Yeah.
She's like, "Girl, I don't think I could have. I don't know if I would have kept going.
Yes,
Like
I know.
that is
But
really
she
hard."
did, and look where she ended up.
Yes, and I
Amazing. Yeah.
let me just rephrase this if I hopefully I don't butcher it because I feel like this could be really helpful for the listener. But Jamie Kern Lima said, "Don't allow the no's to get in the way of your knowing."
Yes.
Wasn't that
Yes.
powerful?
That was so
Oh,
powerful. I was like, "Oh my gosh." Yeah.
don't allow the no's
Yeah.
to get in the way of your knowing.
Yeah.
So good.
So good.
Mm.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Tell me what you have going on now.
Yes. Oh, thank you for asking.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely continuing like putting a lot of love and energy into my podcast because I just love these
I just love your
conversations. I have to
podcast.
get you on the podcast too. We
Yes,
can
I
have
would
these
love it.
conversations
Yeah.
too. And then, yes, I have a couple things coming up in the fall, which I'm so excited about. So I host something called the Six Figure Circle, and it's a 2-day retreat for six-figure earners. And it's so transformational. It's a 2-day retreat. I host it at my home. It's very intimate. I have a lot of, surprises up my sleeve when I host those things. So just to kind of give you a little insight, I break it. I kind of go, it's a good mixture of the masculine and the feminine energy. So the feminine Friday is the feminine day where I introduce modalities that you may never have done before, like breath work or sound healing. We go deep into like your knowing and your why, get really clear on what it is that you want out of life and in your
Mm-hmm.
life. And we kind of just shed and detangle and deconstruct those things on that Friday with experts and guests. And then Saturday is more of the masculine doing day. So we do
Mm-hmm.
a lot of integration. So we like integrate everything from Friday. And I have special like sales guests, sales leaders and teachers and guest speakers. And it is super transformational. And we have a big celebratory dinner on Saturday night, and it is powerful.
Yeah.
And so I host those quarterly. So I'll be hosting another one again this fall,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm just so excited for it. So if you want more information, you can obviously get any of that information on my Instagram at FeliciaRomero.com, on Instagram, or my website, FeliciaRomero.com. There's an application, but those light me up. The in-person stuff light me up.
Yeah.
So yeah, there'll be more live podcast events. There'll be more of that, and yeah, I love to create. So I'm sure there'll be another thing up my sleeve for
Yeah.
sure.
You inspire me so much. When I saw your live in-person podcast, I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh my gosh, I want to do this too."
Yes,
Yeah,
and you
so I'm
can,
gonna do it in
and you're
Hawaii.
doing it. You're doing
Yeah. Well, I mean,
it.
yeah. I mean,
Yes.
thanks to you, you helped me. You talked me through all of this.
Oh,
All of this on what to do, how to do, and to think now, like, here I am sitting with you and actually doing it.
yes. I love
Yeah.
this, and you're so good. You're such a
I love it
natural.
so much. It feels like this is where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so
Thank
good.
you.
So good.
Yeah, I
Thank you
love
so
it.
much for having me.
Thank you for being here. And thank you for
Yes.
getting me started.
Yes, absolutely. Mm.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the Mapuana Reed Show. And you can like, follow, subscribe, all the good stuff. See you in the next episode.